Gary and Janelle, everybody who's here tonight pretty much has experienced an empty nest in some way, shape, or form. I mean, Pam, you're almost there. You almost got them to fly away.
Pam doesn't believe it right now.
but you're in good company with us tonight. So what was the experience of being empty nesters like for the two of you?
You can start, Gary.
Yeah, you'll interrupt me before I get the first sentence.
There you go.
I thought it was great. It's enjoyable. We always said we were empty nest because when we took Allie to school, my poor coworkers had to live through that. But then we got back home, Grant was in high school, so he was like gone all the time. So in some ways it felt like we'd lost both of them. And we've always called ourselves empty nester because once Grant went to school, he was like mad. He did internships every summer. He was never back. But what really got to me was moving him out. Although we said we were empty nesters, that empty room haunts me because Allie's room, the way it is, you can't really see. But when you come out of our room, there's Grant's room and there was his bed where he would be in it. And that room is empty now. And that has really hit me hard. So some kind of finalization to it now. Janelle?
Okay. So I agree with Gary. It's been great. It's been a really good experience. And Gary and I have different experiences because I think of he's an only child and I'm the youngest of 4. So I grew up seeing people grow up and leave the home. You know what I mean? So kind of that was expected. And I have never lived close to my home. I mean, Gary, we live here. We didn't, when we first got married, we lived in Chicago and then we've lived by Gary's family the rest of the time. So the empty room, even though it makes me sad, it's different for me because to me it was expected. So I guess I'm just kind of used to people growing up and leaving, if that makes sense a little bit. But at the same time, it's been a great experience, but there's also been other things that have been different for the two of us. And I can't remember if one of the other questions might address that a little bit better. And I think that's something to keep in mind. So we'll talk about that later when we talk about caring, like what people can do to care for people that are going through an empty nest, is that, you know, the couple, if there's a couple involved, or they might be going through some things a little bit differently. The other thing that I think is that empty nests and things like that, sometimes retirement and other seasons of life are sometimes seen differently than other seasons of life that maybe come across more serious or needing care. But I think it was when we went to our Stephen Leader training that I realized we did an exercise, because I think, you know, having an empty nest, that's a happy thing, right? Everybody's grown up, we've raised everybody, we're moving on, we're getting jobs, you know, some people are getting married. So that's all happy stuff. But at the same time, people that are going through an empty nest typically are going through a lot of change in their life. Sometimes they have aging parents at the same time as they're losing their children. And Gary will talk a little bit later about, I think about, you know, his dad was sick and things too. So there was a lot going on, and there was a lot of grief. So, you know, and I think like he mentioned, that room is a final grief reminder for us that our house is now empty. But it's been fun because Gary and I've had a good time reconnecting. So that's been a good part.
So it sounds like for the two of you, this was both a gradual process of becoming empty nesters, and it was also a very sudden thing that occurred in the course of moving Grant this last time. So you're a couple months into this now, into what and nobody likes this term these days, the new normal. in your household. So how are you handling this now that it feels much more final?
Janelle can start that one.
Oh, no. Well, I think it's been good that it's been gradual. Because I think over the gradualness of the whole thing, Gary and I've had a chance to reconnect to a couple because, you know, for all those years we've been a couple, but also parents, and we're still parents, but you know what I mean? Everybody in the household trying to organize schedules and all that. So I think the gradualness and the new normal is now we're able to be at a deeper connection to talk and to if like the empty room, let's talk about that for a second. I mean, that really bothers Gary and it's very sad for him. It's sad for me too, but in a different way. So we're able, I think, at this point in our lives, and not that we didn't talk before, but we were able to talk about it, and I think things are going well because of that. And I could see easily, and let's bring it up, where some couples that maybe didn't have that connection. You know, I could see where it'd be very easy for a couple that spent all their time raising their children when there's the empty nest could have trouble reconnecting because, you know, you have to kind of work at that. So, but it's been good. I don't know. And we talk more, I guess. I don't know if that's the right answer you're looking for, Pastor Jake, if you want to ask something else, or Gary, what thoughts do you have?
What was the question?
How are we adjusting to the new normal?
Talking to you, I'm talking to Jay.
Okay. All right.
Fine.
So Gary, the new normal in your household.
Is there really a normal? Debate that. I don't think there is a normal, but so the new normal what?
Which is post having kids at home.
Yeah.
Which is much more final now with Grant having moved out. How are you handling that? This new normal, where it's you.
Do I have a choice?
There's always a choice.
I think I'm doing great. Except I can't walk by that room, and the more I think about it, I'll just start crying on you.
He does.
That is an answer in and of itself, right?
Yep.
Perhaps you're not doing as well.
Well, good Lord, don't depress me.
You need to get something in that room.
I didn't want to come tonight. It's going to depress me.
Be vulnerable, Gary. You can do it.
No, I don't. That empty room bothers me. We just haven't taken time, and I don't want to fill it back up with crap because we're going to downsize pretty soon. So I don't want to fill it up with something.
It was easy to, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Shut the door.
That makes it hard. Shut the door. I bet Ron shut some doors in his day, hasn't he?
So Gary, I mean, when we moved Allie's stuff out, because she when they got married, she and Jeremy, I mean, her room was empty too. And then it was easy for us because we're like, well, let's get a king size bed for us, right? And we moved our stuff to her room, so her room's not empty.
Right.
We can't see her room really that well.
Yeah, and we can't see it.
You have to kind of bend your head around. You get an answer you wanted or not?
Well, I don't know that I have a specific answer that I'm looking for.
Well, what answer are you looking for, and I'll give it to you.
But I feel like that the answer that maybe we are receiving is that the new normal affects each person differently.
Is that the answer you want to hear? Because I'll give you that answer. It does.
Because it sounds like that you're not quite at the same place as Janelle is in this new normal.
Well, I'm very proud that I don't want kids to live with me for years. God, no. I'm very proud. This is a normal thing. I think when you're looking at empty nest and life changes, this is more of a positive rather than a negative. And so in my mind, it doesn't warrant as much attention because it's more of a positive. You get them raised and graduated and jobs, that's all good. It's just a change in life. I don't deal well with changes in life. That's just me. And in the last 7 years, it has been constant turmoil, parents dying, kids moving, Allie getting married, job change. And I'm tired of change. I just would like to have 5 years of
No change.
down in the rut and not have to adapt.
Yeah.
That's my thing. But I mean, we're unfortunately, ideally in the middle of the kids right now. We're 2 hours either direction. So we do get to see more. But actually, Allie's living in Florida for a year did not bother me.
But that bothered me.
Well, that's your problem. I was fine with it.
Yeah, we're focused on Gary. and
It's about me
Gary-
right now.
Exactly. That's okay.
I'm surprised that you would think her being 1,000 miles away would bother me.
Didn't-
But that didn't bother me as much. But Allie and Grant are very, very different children. The problem, you know what the problem is Grant is my helper. He helps me. And I've lost that. That's my problem. He helps me.
It's hard.
It is hard.
But when he was home, what did he come home
Oh, he came home before we went on our trip.
before we went on a trip? What do we need to do, Dad? And the tears start, and I'm like, I need help with Granny's trimming shrubs, and off we went, and he helped me do the job in half the time. So that's my problem with him. He's my helper. Because I think as you age, I can't do as much. I get exhausted, and then he gets, he can help, and then all of a sudden you get used to that help, and that help is gone. That's probably my biggest stumbling block, missing him. I've already warned my coworker. You're appreciating his help, but don't get too used to it because it's gonna go away. Okay, I've said enough. Did you get your answer now?
I had an answer from you already, but we're getting a fuller answer.
Yeah, it's good.
We're hearing about things that are difficult and easy
Yes.
about this new normal. And I think we need to expect that our care receivers that are going through an empty nest are going to feel a wide variety of emotions.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Gary had that going on, and in my mind, so I was a mom that worked all while the kids were little, and Gary says, this time for me has made me think, I don't have a lot of regrets, but at the same time, I ask myself, did I do a good job as a mom? Because the time for that is done now. You know what I mean? So I'm thinking about things like that. I worked, and Gary would say during the summers, it's time for you to go back to work. I'm not the type, I was a better mom because I worked when I was home with the kids all summer and having no structure. You can ask Gary, it was not always good because I have to have some type of structure. So, but I'm asking questions like that. And so, I get kind of funny because Grant's really good about, he texts both of us, but we found out when they moved out, they text each of us for different things. They talk to Gary about some things, they talk to me about some things. But Grant's getting good about texting both of us, and so we have a text with all three of us, but Allie doesn't do that still. And then Gary will say, well, Allie texts me, and I'm like, well, what did she want with you? Or, or I say, she texted me, well, what did she want with you? And not that we're like jealous per se, but we don't know what's going on unless the two of us stop and say what Allie shared with us, so those things, I guess it runs a little bit on a guilt for me, but not a bad guilt, I guess, because I've kind of worked through it. But when they left, I've really spent a lot of time asking myself, well, I see moms that, don't take off, or they take off and raise their kids. And I think that's amazing. But I didn't choose to do that. And so there's a little bit of that. Did I make the right choice, I guess, going on in my mind? So as terms of care, you'd have two different types of grief going on, I think. You know, with Gary wanting help, missing Grant's help, and also that goes with his dad too. He'll hopefully talk a little bit about that too, because his dad helped him a lot as well. So he has that double grief going on, and I have a different type of grief going on that's more related to how I chose to mother our children over the years.
All right, so we've kind of talked a little bit about, the process of empty nesting can be very gradual. And then there are other times where it's a very sudden thing. Sometimes it happens because people, you take your kid to college, but then they come back over the summer, and Grant was not that way.
Never.
But then there are other situations where it's just like, it happens and it's done. And they're out. I was one of those kids. I moved out because I was going to college the summer after I finished high school, and I moved out and went to school full time, and I continued to go to school in the summer. And so I never moved back home in the summer either. And so for my parents, it was just boom, I graduated in May and I moved out. And so that there can be that gradualness. What do you think helps people to make that transition, whether it's a gradual transition to an empty nest or a sudden transition into an empty nest? What helps them to get through that?
I think it's like the song, you get by with a little help from your friends.
Yeah.
I think because our social life became much more active, and this damn COVID crap just ruined it all again, but we have certain social things. And in fact, we have a dinner group on Monday nights, our empty nest dinner group, because when Grant was leaving, we have a couple of friends that are single moms. And I'm like, they're going to be all by themselves, and we're going to have to eat every meal out because I'm not going to want to cook for two of us. It's not fun. So we've kind of started that. And that has actually turned into the best, cheapest therapy one could ever get.
Yeah, that we didn't even realize. I mean, something that like Gary said, we were just thinking, well, they're going to be by themselves. So we kind of felt sad about that. And maybe they can come eat dinner with us. And then it turned into something that's been very, very supportive for all of us, and healing for all of us, because we talk a lot. It's this little group, like a small group, a support group. And, something that we didn't know that was going to happen, and it has, and it's been very good, very helpful. And I think, like you said, Gary, getting by with a little help from our friends and also each other. I mean, we seem to, not that we didn't talk before, but we talk more now, I think, and we can bring up more vulnerable type topics that we didn't to do before, right? Wouldn't you agree? Or no?
The last 300 words you said.
Okay. Sorry.
Sure.
It wasn't you, Janelle.
Okay.
You tuned out.
Okay. He tuned out.
Basically, talking more is a synopsis.
It
Yeah.
seems to be her, yes,
Because she's from Venus.
because it's just the two of us.
And she's from Venus.
I'm from Venus, right?
So you both needed a little help from your friends.
Mhm.
Did you feel like you needed help from your church or from other places outside of that friend group?
We have really, really good friends. So I didn't feel that way.
But our friends are also some of our church group.
If we want to cross pollinate, sure, but I just whatever we were lacking or whatever, I think our friends kind of filled in.
But I think we were kind of fortunate in that way. I think, again, going back to what I said earlier, empty nest would be something that most people wouldn't think people would need care for. Or
True.
at least, you know what I'm saying? Like a society, because it's just something we just do and we're supposed to be excited about it. And I think Gary brought up an example of a friend. He said something to somebody he saw once who had an empty nest and said, aren't you, kind of said to her, aren't you excited your kids are gone? Or no, aren't you sad your kids are gone? And they said, oh no, I'm very excited. So we just don't know what somebody's going to be experiencing. And I think it goes back to checking in with people. So yes, I think, did we need the church to check in with us? No, because we were getting by and we had things going on that were fulfilling for us, but maybe somebody else is grieving a lot more, so you just don't know. And I think checking in and being intentional about that with our church members would be an important thing to do. Did that answer your question, Pastor Jay?
You did answer my question, yes. Well, like I said at the beginning, all of us basically have gone through this in some way, shape, or form. But from your perspective, is there something that people should say to you as you're going through that process of an empty nest, or things that you wish people had not said to you?
I can honestly say no. I don't recall anyone making any comments or questions, but I don't think they would have offended me, or I'm fairly certain they wouldn't have offended me had they reinforced something. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Pray for you, but I can't think of any.
I don't think anybody said anything they shouldn't say. I do think you need to be cautious of, nobody did this, but assuming that a couple's experiencing the same thing the same way. So, because you don't know, if the couple's doing well reconnecting, you don't know for sure. You don't know if, obviously we've had two people in a couple that have kind of completely different experiences with the empty nest. So I think you want to be careful of making assumptions when we're talking to somebody, when we would be checking in, saying it's a happy experience when they could be sad, or saying it's a sad experience when they could be happy. So I think when we had the guest speaker last time, I think one of the things she said is, just say something general like, this is big. It's big right now. Your kids have all moved out. How are you doing? Because even when the kids went away to college, we talked all about, everybody asked how the kids were doing a lot, which was fine. We didn't feel we needed people to ask about us, but at the same time, it might be helpful to somebody needing that support to say, how are you doing? And see if you could start a conversation with that and get them talking about things.
I would concur that's a good thing to do. Because I remember when my dad died, everyone asked, first thing to say, how's your mother? And while I appreciated that, no one asked how I was doing, and I was not good. So I can see with the empty nest, that is a good way to say, how are you doing, and not ask that first. Or just from my experience, would appreciate that more.
I just think be careful. We have to be careful of making assumptions, because our experience might not be somebody else's, and then yet the people in the same household might be having different experiences as well.
It's a realization, I think, that there is a transition that is happening in multiple ways. And as an outsider observing a household where an empty nest has occurred, we think specifically about the people who have left because they've gone to a new environment. It feels like there's much change surrounding them and the people who have remained in the home, we don't think about the change that has taken place for them as much. And yet it is just as significant, if not more significant.
Well, we had to have kind of some time to adjust to new patterns because, you know, when your kids are home, you do things, everybody has their own schedule or, you know, how they do things even at night when you're going to bed and things. And so Gary and I had to kind of come up, you know, Gary likes to go to sleep, go to bed and lay in there for a little bit by himself and have his little quiet time. And I like to sit out here by myself. And when Grant was home and Allie had left, Grant and I would sit here and kind of chit chat at night before he'd go to bed, and then I would go to bed. So when he was gone, then I was sitting out here by myself, which was fine, but it's kind of, you have to get used to, well, what are we going to do now? So I do more reading and some devotion time and things like that. And Gary likes to go to bed and have some time, be quiet before I come in and join him in the bedroom, you know, when we're having our work week, that kind of thing, you know. So that's just, we had to get kind of used to that. It wasn't awkward or anything, but it was just, you had to kind of get used to everybody's doing a new routine.
There's a lot of wisdom around the table and on the screen with empty nesting. Any other wisdom that you all would like to share from your own experiences?
I think it's valuable to have other activities that you're going to do, because in our household, when the kids were gone, we went from having ball games literally sometimes, I don't know how many nights a week, you know, like super. And some of you guys have been involved in sports, you know what I'm talking about. You are on the go. But I have some friends who didn't have anything to go to when the kids were gone. You see what I'm saying? Like hobbies,
Other interests.
And so now they don't know how to fill their time because they went from so focused on every like 5-6 nights a week or wherever to not having anything like this or a Bible, nothing, you know what I mean? And so I think we were fortunate because we had other things to do. And I think that's true with the Oxfords.
I hope I live long enough to be bored and need to look for something to do. I can't. It's like the kids are gone, but crap, we are never freaking home. There's always something almost every night. I just want to sit in my chair sometimes.
Yeah.
And there's just always stuff to do.
But I think it also depends on what type of job you have. Whereas, you know, many of us have been at jobs where we're constantly a lot of people during the day, you know what I mean? But if I had had a job where I worked in a very small business or alone, and, you know, they would go home and it would be quiet, that would be different too. You see what I'm saying? So I think it depends. Everybody's circumstance is a little different. You have to be aware of that. Not assuming everybody's experience has been the same as yours. And I was going to say something about something sometimes people
Exactly, yeah.
silly to you is, well, your child moves so far away. How are you doing with your child being so far away? Okay. You know, sometimes people say things like that. I mean, you know, right? You've heard that. Some of you probably have.
But
He's
to
healthy
me,
and he has
that's
a
not
job.
silly. If I had a caregiver, I would want them to say that because I grieve about that still all the time.
Well, I don't mean it's like silly.
I mean, it does affect me that he's so far away, whereas you have your kids too. I'm not jealous, but I'm saying have your kids 2 hours away or
Right, that's amazing, and it probably won't always stay like that, right? But right, for this moment, this little season, this mini season, we need to take advantage of that, having them both so close, because you're right. You're exactly right, because when Allie lived in Florida, I felt probably similar to what you're going through, Janice. It was really hard for me. I don't know why it was so hard for me, but she had just gotten married and, you know, all that stuff. And it was just having her so far away, and we didn't see him. We couldn't, you know, we talked to him on the phone and stuff, but it's just.
and being able to go.
For me, it was hard when Matt's gone through what he's gone through,
Yeah,
Right, exactly.
so far away.
yes, yes.
So, yeah, I guess maybe I should say the way people phrase those things is maybe what I should say.
So they should be careful about it, because it is a grievous, it can be a very grievous thing.
Well, when your kids go through something big and you can't just be
Drive
there
over there,
immediately, you've been through it, you've all been through it. Yes, you can't just get there, you know?
And the one thing is too, you're always a parent, you know, and my parents, the other thing this whole experience has done for me is made me think about my own mom and dad and things that sorry, I'm going to start tearing up too, Marcia, but to think about what they were like. I remember when my mom had her 50th birthday. I remember when my mom turned 50, and I thought when I turned 50, I thought, well, she's feeling similar inside like I'm feeling now, you know, and I, I can't, I could ask her that, but she's probably not going to remember, you know what I mean? So I think about those things like my mom and dad, and like Gary was talking about Grant leaving. I remember when we got married and I left my folks' house and we saw my dad's face when we were driving away, you know, and the tears in his eyes. So I think it's helped us empathize a little bit what our parents have gone through as well through their lifetime, you know, as we reach those milestones that they have had um, in common with us. So I know probably similar yet different, but still at the same time, maybe some of the same feelings, and what that was like for them.
Anybody else have anything to add? Questions for Gary or for Janelle?
I think I would add that I think it's important, which maybe this is telling people what to do, but for people to really reflect on what is going to fulfill them now, because I feel like I just went out into the orchard and picked a whole bunch of stuff and put it in August. And I am so busy. But the things that I really want to do, I try to reflect on them, like what you're talking about. Just a little downtime, please. Now, I would like to fly a plane. I would like to sail a boat. I would like to write some short stories and maybe some articles. And and it's my own fault.
You better get busy. You
It's
got a lot to do.
it's a time management, you know, thing. And I can't blame the things that I have chosen to fill my life with, but just filling your life, you have to be careful, I think. I think that's an important thing for people to really reflect on it and to find a balance, which obviously I don't have that answer, but when you're.
I don't think you have to look very far to fill your life.
Oh my, no. That's something that I think is important for people who are investors to be able to really reflect on.
I also think it helps when you try to think about something for someone else rather than for yourself. You know, it makes you feel better when you're doing something for someone else. I think you can throw rocks at me, but I think when you kind of spread it out and try to help others,
Yeah,
that kind of makes you feel better than if you did. Well, but we also need to do things for ourselves too occasionally.
Yeah.
You know, you need that for you, but I don't think you have to look very far to help about serving others, and I think that goes a long way towards filling voids.
Well, and I think too, COVID, you know, a good part of COVID was we were kind of stranded with Grant. You know, he had to come home, and that was the longest he had been home for since he left for college, and then it was kind of the finality of it all. But it was a time for us to, at least the three of us, kind of, and we had Allie some and Jeremy too, but to kind of spend time together. And then I think we did things together as a family, and then you and I kind of continued some of that stuff, like cooking more together and stuff like that we do sometimes. Now that we're school started, it's busier and not so much, but I think if you can look at it as an adventure to explore together and grow together, and deepen your faith and your love together, then that it'll turn out okay. But I do think, sometimes coming back to some people may need more support than others, and not for us not to forget that, because to think, somebody having kids going off to college or moving away and getting married, I don't think that's something we think automatically as somebody who's going to need extra support, as opposed to like somebody that has lost a spouse to death or something, or grief that way. So, or, job loss or some of those other things that we've been trained on. So, but it is any type of life transition. And I think people going through empty nest, we need to not forget, Gary, when we moved Allie away that same year, his dad passed away. So that's a lot of trauma for people too. So, because that leaving Allie at St. Louis was very hard for us. We both cried and cried and cried and cried on that. And I think that's a typical thing for people when they take a child to college, that they sometimes do is cry when they leave them there. But at the same time, he had a dad sick and then died. And so it was just hard. And then you're aging at the same time. You're getting more to the, hopefully not the middle of your life, but middle age. And you're thinking about regrets as you're transitioning to a different time of your life as well. So lots going on.
Yeah. So you may end up having a care receiver who this is their primary issue, and this may be a part of compound grief, where you're discovering that this is a grief upon grief kind of a situation, where perhaps, an aging parent issue is there as well, and then this also is happening at the same time. And so it's good for us to think about those things and to recognize also that the empty nest comes about in a number of different ways. People leave to get married, people leave because they go to college, people leave because of divorce. And so we need to be aware of those things and to continue to help our care receivers unpack those things, because they can continue to be compounded. It will be perhaps a layer of the onion that we would be peeling away if it's not the primary thing. Thanks, Gary and Janelle.
You're welcome. Thanks to everybody else too, because there's lots of wisdom here in this room, really is.